Hello, I'm GiGi the Reader, and today I will be reviewing Water Cards by Colleen. The story is a sequel to the book of Blood of Wonderland. Blood of Wonderland ended with Dinah the princess and daughter to the King of Hearts being falsely accused of killing her brother Charles right before she was about to be crowned Queen of Hearts. She had to run away from Wonderland Palace and take refuge in the woods, where she befriended a rogue spade soldier who took her to an encampment of Yorkie people. She met their chief. Yorkie had long been suppressed by her father, the king, and agreed to join her in leading an army to overthrow her father. And this is where the War of the Cards begin. The story begins with Dinah and her army of Yorkie warriors and rogue spades marching from the south towards Wonderland Palace. She's with her advisors Sir Goran Cheshire, Stacy Belft, the general to the spades, and her trainer, Bakan. Dinah is still upset with her ex-boyfriend, who she planned to make king after she was crowned queen. He told her in the last book he cared for her, but he did not have feelings for her. He was not in love with her and could not consummate their relationship. Aside from that, presently Mundu, the chief of the Yorkie, has marched his army towards Wonderland from the north. Dinah marched her army from the south towards Wonderland Palace. The two armies planned to attack from both sides. Along with the march, the army took two spades who had died from exhaustion. All the Yorkie warriors had horses, but the rogue spade army were horseless and had to walk the entire way towards Wonderland. That was why Dinah planned stops along the way, so they camped to rest overnight. The Yorkie agreed with Dinah that they would not make their deadline to meet with Mundu's army in time if they stopped for too many overnight camps. It also caused discord and fights among the Yorkies and spades. They did not get along with each other. At one overnight camp, they did a ceremonial burning of the two spades' bodies who had died. During the ceremony, a fight broke out among the Yorkie spades. During the fight, she spotted Ihor, the Yorkie's witch doctor, watching her. He only nodded at her and disappeared into the darklands. Dinah confesses to Cheshire that she's angry that Wortley doesn't love her. She says that when she sees him, she sees rivers of blood. He tells her good. She replies, no, that's insanity. Maybe I'm just as crazy as my brother. He said, you are nothing like your brother. He was mad and you are brilliant. He says, take that anger and use it. Use it for battle. Use it to rule. She says, but I can't control it. He replied, then don't. Once you're a queen, you can deal with Wortley however you see fit. You can marry him, you can kill him, you can make him your boudoir slave. So Cheshire didn't care either way as long as she dethroned the king and took her place on the throne. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. It's another interruption. That's most likely my narrator, Shaquita Fairy the Bees. Hold on. Hold on, here it comes.
Hello? Excuse me? Hello?
Yes.
What's going on? What's going on? Hey. Did you do it again? I know I'm running late, GiGi, the reader. Did you do it again? Did you start without me?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I understand I'm late. Well, what's going on? What's the War of the Cards? Okay, this is the sequel to the other book. Okay, Blood of Wonderland sequel. Really, GiGi? Okay. So what's going on with the queen, the princess? Oh, she's still not queen yet.
No, she's not.
Dinah. Dinah. Okay, yeah, she ran off to the woods in the last story.
Yep.
Okay, so I know you got everybody caught up, but I'm just getting myself caught up, GiGi the Reader. Is that okay with you, GiGi the Reader? If I get myself caught up, I mean, I'm just getting myself caught up with the story.
Wow.
Okay. Okay, so now where we at? She got her little warriors together, and Cheshire, she had okay, now we right here. So Cheshire got his ass up in there, but he not caring either way as long as she get. I don't trust Cheshire. I don't know. She found out that in the last book that he was her father, but I don't trust Cheshire still. He just worried about her getting that throne. You know his intentions. His intentions are good. He got an agenda, GiGi the reader.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust him.
Mm.
Okay. Alright. Okay, well carry on, GiGi the reader. Go ahead. Hey, we're gonna get it popping. Yeah,
Okay.
get it popping. Carry on. Carry on.
Alright, anyway, continuing on, because I was rudely interrupted.
Oh, hold on, GiGi.
Oh my
I'm sorry.
God.
One more thing. What else I missed? Did she say that she had spotted that old freaky medicine man? What they call himself, the witch doctor? Ihura?
Mm-hmm.
She spotted him and he just disappeared into the darkness like during the fight that broke out. And she said she spotted him and he disappeared into the dark. You know, he kind of weird and freaky. You remember from the last book, she first met him in a tent, sitting half naked with his big fat ass with a loincloth. Well, that's how they described it in the book, GiGi. He was sitting half naked in a tent with a hookah pipe, smoking on a hookah pipe. That's what it said, GiGi. And he's been weird anyway. He would appear and then just fade into the doggone darkness. I mean, how come I just gonna appear and fade away? He weird anyway. I don't trust him either, speaking of trusting people. That weird Ihura. Yeah, he's a witch doctor or a medicine man. She encountered him in the last book, smoking on a hook, sitting in a tent, and he foretold her future, her fortune, or something. I don't know. But he weird anyway.
Right.
So I just missed that part, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just.
Wow.
Okay, GiGi Reed. I'm just getting caught up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It took you long enough to do the next review. I mean, how long did it take you to read that sequel? I'm just saying. The last review you did was, I don't know how many, was over a month ago. GiGi? Okay. Alright, well, carry on.
So anyway, just then, something, where was I at? So Cheshire didn't care either way as long as she dethroned the king and took her place on the throne. Just then, something called a sky curtain came down from the sky. It's described as something like a small wind funnel. It was menacing and dangerous enough to stop the men from fighting. She took it as a good omen. One night, while settling down to camp, they made it just outside of Wonderland Palace. Cheshire took Dinah to an abandoned windmill with two of her Yorkie bodyguards. They had a good view of the now empty villages and Wonderland Palace. The villages were empty because most of the residents had been moved into the palace for protection and to help the king's army fight. But as they viewed the palace, an assassin was hiding in the night. One of the king's assassins. He shot a bow towards Dinah. It barely missed her, grazed her face. Her Yorkie bodyguard shot back, hitting the assassin. They ran towards the dying boy. Dinah questioned him and asked him why he shot at her. As he took his last breath, he told her the king told him to kill her or he'd kill his parents who had been taken hostage in the castle. The next morning, the war starts. Dinah's army and Mundo's warriors charge the palace. As the King of Hearts awaits with his royal card army, they line the grounds of the palace. Before they charged the palace, Dinah yelled out to her army, "Off with their heads." And as they charged toward the palace, she yelled, "Kill them all." During the melee of the battle, the king released the Jabberwocky. Apparently, the Jabberwocky are large, menacing flying creatures. Wait a minute. Excuse you.
Wait a minute. What now? What was that? What was that again, GiGi? What was that? I wasn't listening. What? The Jabberwocky? The Jabberwho?
The Jabberwocky.
I almost missed it. You said it about to release what?
The Jabberwocky.
Jabberwocky?
Yes.
Oh, looky. I don't know exactly what that is, but I think let me run before you start. Before she releases, let me go hide. Let me go duck behind something real quick before you start that. She about to release what? Okay, let me duck down behind the couch over here. Move out the way. Move out the way. Oh my, the Jabberwocky, how you say it again?
Jabberwocky.
Jabberwocky.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me go back down. I'll move out the way. You gonna get it started, GiGi. Don't release him yet. Okay. Okay. Here I go. Okay. All right. Let me try to hide first. Okay, GiGi. You can release him now. I'm on my way over here. You can release it now.
Okay. Apparently, the Jabberwocky are large, menacing flying creatures. Okay. Here we go. I think. Here they come. Uh-oh. Starry Bluff, the leader of the Spade Army, was killed by the Jabberwocky right away. Then a second Jabberwocky was released on the other side of the palace. Oh God, here we go again. Okay.
A second one? Oh snap! She got another up in there. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me go hide again. Wait, don't release them yet. I'm gonna hide in the closet this time. Hold on. Wait a minute, GiGi. Hold on. Let me go find a hiding spot over here. Wait.
Okay. Well, here's the second Jabberwocky is being released. Okay. A call for retreat for the king's soldiers cards. They retreated back behind the iron palace gates. The Yorkie and Spades rushed in behind them, along with Mundo's army from the north side of the palace. Some card soldiers surrendered to a bunch of Dinah's Spade soldiers, but somewhere in the battle, her horse Mort was lost in the fight. No one could find him. In the next chapter, we're introduced to a new character, Dinah's childhood friend named Derwin. He's a friend of Wortley's too. Derwin Fergal is an archer and a heart card. Derwin is secretly fighting for Dinah's side from inside the castle. It was Dinah's hope that she could recruit more of the king's men to her side to join her army and fight against the king. Derwin's own father had been thrown into the Black Towers by the king, but now he secretly fought for Dinah's side while Dinah, Wortley, Cheshire, and Sir Gawain planned their second attack after the first battle. Dinah's second line of attack was to dress a Yorkie girl in armor, a Yorkie girl named Lepashi. She would be Dinah's double, so she was disguised as Dinah and mounted on a black steed. In turn, Dinah disguised herself as a peasant. She dressed herself in a sackcloth to pass for a Wonderland citizen. As the fake Dinah charged the palace, Derwin shot his arrow from the turrets, the palace roof, killing Lepashi. the Yorkie girl disguised as Dinah. It had to be done so the king's army would think Dinah had been killed. The heart card shouted, "The rebel queen is dead." Their plan worked. Their opponents thought they killed Dinah. They shouted, "She's dead. The war is won." Dressed as a Wonderland peasant, Dinah, Cheshire, Wardley, and Sir Gawain picked up the girl's dead body and marched towards the palace. But Harkard stopped them and took the body just outside the palace doors. Before they could enter, they took the body to show the king. Suddenly, blue smoke spilled from the dead body as the guards carried it into the palace. Blue smoke from the liquid that their medicine man, Ihora, had induced into the Peshi's body. The blue smoke that emitted from her caused everyone in the courtyard to go into a drug-induced haze. The king's army on the north side of the palace were all neutralized for now. Derwin Fergal had helped with the well-planned coup by knowingly killing Dinah's body double. It went just as planned. Dinah and her crew immediately started looking around the ground for the sealed trap door, a hole in the ground that opened to the tunnels that led into the palace to the king. Successfully, they found the secret passageway. Once in the palace, they didn't see the king, but the knave of hearts by the name of Xavier Jufley. They fought with each other. He ended up in a one sword fight with Bakan. Bakan stabbed Xavier in the chest, but before Xavier took his last breath, he stabbed Bakan in the throat. They both fell to their death. Bakan died in Dinah's arms. She promised to take his body back to Huyuhar to be buried. After that, Dinah vowed to Wardley, Sir Gawain, Cheshire, and Kyershin that she killed the king herself when they found him in the palace. She didn't want anyone else dying for her. She said people will not respect a leader who sends others to do their bidding. But in the meantime, Dinah and her crew, a dozen of spades, had infiltrated the palace, took it over, and had the guards inside surrender. She finally came to the king in the throne room, sitting on his throne with his sword clutched to his chest, ready to fight alone. Dinah confronted him. "It's over. Our armies have broken down your walls. In an hour's time we will take all of Wonderland's palace. I beg of you, surrender and save the men who defend you here. Their lives are still worth something to me." The king replied, "You speak like a queen, but you will die a traitor, a worthless wench, a motherless orphan, a murderer, a girl I never wished to call daughter." Then he yelled for his men to kill Dinah and her crew. Just then Mundu's Yorkie warriors broke into the north side of the palace as planned. The king and his men didn't have a chance. Dinah begged the king to surrender before more people would have to be killed. Then Cheshire stepped forward and proudly admitted he was Dinah's real father. "She isn't your daughter. Are you so dumb that you never suspected she was my daughter? Can't you see her? The dark hair, the dark eyes, her sharp mind. She certainly didn't get that from you. Daviana never loved you. Tell me, did she even have reason to try? You with your whores and your pointless wars, you never gave her the minute of your day." With that, the king would not surrender. He leapt towards Dinah. They both drew it with swords. In the final blow, Dinah stabbed the King of Hearts through a space in his armor and pushed it deeply as she could. The blade tore through his beating heart. She whispered in his ear as he was dying. She whispered in his ear, "Charles, for Charles." A look of confusion washed over the king's face. He muttered, "Charles." As the king took his last breath, Dinah explained, "I am the queen." Soon after, Mundu walks into the throne room and finds out the king is dead. He knelt over his body, took out his knife, and decapitated the king. The king's head came off easily, and Mundu raised it up out in front of his troops, who exploded with cheers and hollers. Dinah turned away, nauseated. Next, Dinah started searching the palace for Vittori. She was found and brought to the courtyard. As Dinah walked out onto the courtyard where the peasants and civilians of Wonderland stood, they made a pathway for her as she walked through the crowd. Wearing the king's crown and flanked with Wardley, Cheshire, Sir Gawain and Mundu. Mundu walked behind her with the king's head in his hand and held it above his head to show the people. The crowd gasped. The soldiers had taken Victoria up to the chopping block in the courtyard. When Dinah approached her, she pleaded for her life. Dinah showed mercy and announced she would not execute Victoria and that they would sign peace treaties with the Yorkie people, a treaty to live freely on their land outside of the palace. She showed mercy but announced to the people that Victoria was indeed not blood related to the king. She went on to say, I will strive for peace and commerce with our neighbors, all of them. I vow to you this day I will be the ruler that the King of Hearts never was. I vow to you that criminals will have their day in court before being shut away in the Black Towers. I vow that people who speak up about injustice will not simply disappear. I will enter the Black Towers. Now Wonderland enters a peaceful period of prosperity. Will you join me? The crowd erupted in a wild, tear-filled cheers. The first thing Dinah did after that was turn to the Black Towers and free Harris, her servant who had been locked in a tower cell the entire time she was away. He was like a father to her, the only father she'd ever known. The next chapter, Dinah prepares for her coronation. The day she officially crowned queen, she made Victoria her lady-in-waiting. Harris was there, dressed and healthier and looking better than he did the day she had released him from the Black Tower. Then the coronation began. Victoria to show the crowd the once queen was submitting her title to the new queen, Dinah. Victoria carried the crown on a pillow up the aisle to Cheshire, who placed the crown on Dinah's head. Cheshire stood proclaiming, Wonderland, behold your queen, the Queen of Hearts. It was the crown her brother Charles made for her before he died. Later, after her coronation, Dinah met with Mundu in her chambers to finish the remaining details of the peace treaty. She asked about Mort, if he'd been found yet. He was lost in the final battle. Mundu told her he had not been found yet, only his horse Karis was found. Part of the treaty was that Mort and Karis would mate and Mundu would get 6 foals. But now something else would have to be worked out, so he asked for a trade, a regular shipment of tea to Huyurhar. Part of the treaty was that Mort and Karis would mate and Mundu would get 6 foals, but now something else would have to be worked out, so he asked for a trade of regular shipments of tea to Huyurhar. It was an addictive tea. His warriors couldn't get enough of it, so Dinah agreed. Okay, now moving on.
Wait a minute. Hold up, GiGi. Wait a minute. Excuse me. I got a question.
Okay.
I got a question.
What is it?
Okay. What the hell is going on with this tea? I mean, you gonna trade some tea for 6 horses? I mean, I know the deal was that they would make their horses, and he would get 6 foals, which means 6 baby horses. They call foals. But you're gonna trade. What's so addictive about the tea when he said he gotta get some regular shipments? What's in the tea? I don't know. It sounded just GiGi. It's just questionable to me, GiGi the reader. It sounds questionable that you're gonna trade 6 horses that you couldn't get for some addictive tea. I mean, let's not just smooth over this price. It sounds like they got a little special something. But I mean, what's in it? Is it opium? What is they got some drugs? Is it crack? Is it crack tea or heroin? What's the special blend? What kind of special blend tea is that she got them hooked on? Sound like she got the good, and he wants some of it. It's in regular shipments of the tea, the addictive tea. So y'all just gonna be sitting around getting the white man, which is Dinah and her crew, and where she from, is gonna get these Yorkie people try a new type of drug. Okay. Sound like that's the new crack. That tea sound like the new crack. But it's some meth. What is it, meth?
Mhm.
I don't know. They hooked on something though. Okay. All right. Here's your mic back.
Okay, the other part of the treaty would be that some Yorkie would be allowed to settle in Arladia, one of the Wonderland cities. Then, in parting before he left, Mundu decreed to Dinah, "Do not forget our treaty, Queen of Hearts. Should you break your promises, raid our lands, or kill my people, I will burn this palace to the ground, along with all those in it. Respect the boundaries exposed by the treaty, and I will promise to do the same. I expect that you will visit Huyuhar in a year's time to celebrate our happy arrangement. The tribe will be glad to see you." Then he parted from her, saying, "Goodbye, Queen of Hearts."
The end.
No, it's not the end yet.
What? What?
No,
Oh, it's not the end?
no.
Well, they done had the water wars over there, took the king's head off. She got her crown. And, so, excuse me, I ain't this the end? What else supposed to happen after this? They done made the treaty, a peace been made, okay, da. And next, what, ain't that the end? Oh.
They got 200 more pages.
Excuse me, okay, so it might be, what, 200 more pages, okay, alright. Okay, I'm sorry, excuse me, GiGi the reader. Okay, there's more to the story, okay, that's good then. It's more, okay, I can't do this, so let's see what happened next. Excuse me. Here's your mic back, GiGi the reader.
Okay. Roughly 20 Yorkie remained behind in Wonderland to maintain diplomatic relations. Immediately after the departure, Cheshire approached Dinah, asked if she was going to marry Wardley. He asked who was going to be her king. He didn't think Wardley would be a good choice. He questioned if it was going to be a marriage of love or just friendship. Dinah was shocked and told him, "You step outside your bounds, sir. Wardley will be my king. This was decided in our treaty with the Yorkie. We would not do well to change our plans. Mundu likes Wardley. He trusts him. He must be king."
Yeah, well, she told him right. Who do you think he is? And she said, I'm with Dina on this one. Who the hell is he to come tell her who she gonna pick as king? She told him to tell him, Dina, you step outside your bounds is what she told him. Wortley will be my king. And then what he got to know to be her business that tightness? Because he's her father. He's love, marriage or love or just friendship. That's not his place. You tell him, Dina. Okay. Okay. Continue on.
She told him to continue with his next order of business. So his next question was, "Your Majesty, there is a question of what we should do with the king's body and head. Shall he be buried in your family's tomb inside the palace, or should we just burn him and throw the remains with the filth from the day's chamber pots?" He let out a low chuckle. Dinah replied, "Build a small stone mount inside the castle to hold the Hartsworth, his sword. Have a blacksmith engrave his name upon the sword. His ashes can be sealed inside the stone, but make the stone no higher than waist level. No one will look up to him again." Then she instructed him as to where Charles would be buried, in a garden just outside his bedroom window with an elaborate headstone. At night, Dinah would wander the palace with her personal guard, Kai Urshan. They were finding out the royal apartments had secret exits and entrances scattered throughout the palace. Small treasures were hidden away in these secret rooms to keep it safe. At first, Dinah thought nothing of the hidden rooms, corridors, and passages, until one particular night they found a hidden room that felt warm with heat and smelled of perfume. Linens and clothing were strewn about the room. The next sight Dinah came to was Wardley and Victoria laying face to face, naked, their eyes closed, and they were in deep slumber.
What was that again? call it what it is. She said she smelled something of skin and sweat and wax and perfume and mixed together and salted her nostrils. In other words, they was in there doing a do. Ooh-wee. I didn't see this one coming to oh. Sookie, looky. Okay, relax. The heck with the tea. I need to fix me some popcorn for this one. Okay. Please continue on. Continue on.
As she hovered over their sleeping bodies, Dinah went into a daze, then a rage. What happened next is uncontrolled. She snatched Victoria by the hair and proceeded to whip her. Dinah grabbed a handful of Victoria's thick golden hair and flung her out of bed. Victoria weighed barely more than a feather. She bounced off her dresser before she really understood what was happening. Dinah leaned over her devastated ebony eyes full of rage, her mouth twisted in a violent smile. Victoria wiped her eyes, confused, and then began crying, and her hand out in front of her. Victoria began yelling, "Oh, Dinah, please, I'm sorry, Your Majesty. Let me explain. You don't understand." But Dinah wouldn't stop. She pounced on Victoria and smacked her around.
Ooh, she just dog walked her. I mean, she slapped and kicked and punched and whipped and did everything to this girl. All I can say is, run, Victoria, run! Run, girl! You getting beat. Ooh, she whooping her. Okay, continue on.
Then Wortley was woke and begged her to stop, as Dinah was now holding Victoria with one hand and forcing her to her knees. Victoria begged for mercy. Dinah pulled out her sword as Wortley tried to leap towards Dinah. He begged her to stop. Dinah ordered her guard, Kyurshin, to restrain him. Wortley and Kyurshin got into a tussle as Dinah snatched Victoria by her hair and punched her again. Then Wortley yelled out, "Alice!" Dinah looked confused. She'd never heard that name before then. Dinah asked, "Do you love him?" Victoria said, "My name is Alice, and yes, I do love him. I love him. I have loved him always." Dinah retorted, "Not as long as I have." Suddenly she brought her sword down on the girl's neck in one swift motion. Blood splattered Dinah's face. Alice's head fell off from her body, landing face down atop a pile of silk sheets. Her body gave a few twitches and collapsed beside it. Alice! Wortley let out a scream, its wrenching sound turning her away from the fury for just a moment. His hysterical cries seemed to shake the castle. Wortley grabbed a silver dagger and lay on a dresser and launched himself at Dinah. He was quick, but Kyurshin was quicker. He grabbed a candlestick and cracked it across Wortley's head, knocking him out. After he was knocked unconscious, Dinah fainted.
Wait a minute, you mean to tell me after she chops this girl's head off, she passes out and faints? Now you know, that goes to tell Dinah ain't nothing but ticky boom boom Looney Tunes crazy. I mean, she is gone. And this is a PG-13 story, ain't it? I'm just saying, she chopped the girls, she caught them in bed together, and then she chops the girl's head off. After they see them caught them smashing together.
Right.
Okay, it's good. Whether it's PG-13 or not, this is good. Okay, continue on.
Okay, when she awoke back into consciousness, she was laying in her bed back in her chambers and had on a clean white gown. Harris was looking down at her, cradling her head. He spoke. "Oh, Dinah, my child, what have you done?" She looked at her hands and could see Alice's dried blood on her. She screamed hysterically, "Get it off, Harris, get it off me." She ran to her tub, turned the water on, and began scrubbing herself.
Yeah, that's a lie right there, GiGi, what it reader. She was hysterical after she woke up. I don't believe that part. That part I don't believe, GiGi the reader. I believe she was there sipping on a latte and puffing on a cigarette. with her legs crossed, laid back, crazy as Dina is. She wasn't hysterical. I don't know what this writer thinking. She probably was sitting there cool as a cucumber. After she chopped that girl's head off, she probably was sitting there, come on. Come on now, Gigi the reader. She probably had her legs crossed, sipping on, puffing her with a cigarette and with a latte. That's how I picture her, because she's Looney Tunes. Yeah. Okay, alright. I'm done. Continue on.
Okay, so Harris replied, no amount of scrubbing would take the blood off your hands. After Dina dried off and dressed herself, she sat and spoke with Harris. I killed her. Yes, Harris replied. She continued, Wortley loved her. Yes. Did you know? He replied, I suspected, but I never knew. Why didn't you tell me? Harris answered, because I knew your reaction would be one of rage, so like your father. But he wasn't my father. I'm not supposed to be like him at all. Harris said, it's true, you are not his natural child, but you have inherited his nature, since he was the only father you had ever known. She fell to the floor crying. Then Cheshire walked into the room. He told Dina, Your Majesty, I implore you to get off the floor. We have much to do. Dina replied, Do you not know what I have done? Cheshire have killed her. In cold blood I killed her. Cheshire told her, Don't let guilt overcome you. You did what you had to be done. Victoria Alice was a traitor, and by taking Wortley, she took something that belonged to the Queen. Her death will make things much easier for all of us in the long run. Have no regrets, my daughter. The situation has been wiped clean. No one will ever know. She replied, But what will we tell the kingdom about Victoria? They loved her. He said, I have set rumors in motion that she requested to be sent as an ambassador to Arlardia, and that she left this morning. You know it was hard to see you on the throne here, and she didn't want to serve as a lady-in-waiting, and so on. A tragedy will befall her on the road. Pirates or robbers, I haven't decided yet. So Cheshire had arranged for a cover-up story that Victoria or Alice had simply disappeared. As Cheshire left the room, he turned and said, Don't forget, she was nothing more than a fisherman's daughter from the western slope. In her heart, Victoria was a peasant, a very pretty, poor little peasant named Alice. Her life is worth nothing compared to your crown, one that many of us have worked hard to get upon your stubborn head. For days Dina moped around the castle, sinking into depression, recalling the alchemist, medicine man, Ihora's words, You will cut out the heart of the one you love most. And so she had. And in the process she had become mad like her brother, the Mad Hatter, the Mad Queen of Hearts, holed up in her palace. She lay in her bed for days. Finally, Sir Gawain kicked her door in one day. He basically told her to get up and stop sulking. It was time to snap out of her depression and rule her kingdom. He demanded she get up, bathe, and get dressed. More importantly, he came to warn her that Cheshire was trying to take over and fire most of the consuls she hired. He warned her to get to the next meeting. It was time. Finally, the day came. She arranged a meeting to speak with Wortley privately. When the two spade guards brought him to her, Dina noticed he looked terrible. He was half-dressed, skinny, and dirty. Sir Gawain told her, Wortley's been given a room with clean clothing and more than enough food. He just refuses to eat or bathe or change. He starts a conversation with Dina. I loved her more than I've ever loved anything or anyone. It was as if my soul had taken residence in her body. You killed her, the woman I loved. You cut off her head because you couldn't have me, even though there were thousands of men in Wonderland that would have you. Why would you do this to me? You were my best friend. I would have gladly died for you. Dina could only reply, I love you, Wortley. I wish I could say more, but I love you. I'm so sorry. I know you will never forgive me, but no, I will live the guilt over the pain I've caused you both for the rest of my life. He replied, You burned her body. Now I can't even say goodbye. Wortley goes on and on about how much he loved Alice, Victoria's real name. Finally, he leapt on Dina and began choking her. Dina yelled out, Do it, I deserve it. But he rolled off her and cried. He told her, "You are just like your fathers, both of them. You are the worst of them. I see you now for who you really are." She tells him, "It is not who I will be. What you desire. What do you desire? What do you want from me? Freedom, money? Take Corning tonight, and I'll fill your purse with gold. Go to who you are, or to the western slope. Live out your dream. Just go." Ward replied, "This is where I loved her. This is where I knew her. I can be in no other place. Besides, I want you to see my face every day. I want you to see what your fury wrought." Dinah said, "Give me your chains. I'm sorry for what I've done, Wardley. I will make it up to you someday." She unlocked the chains on his wrist. He was still angry with Dinah and coldly told her, "I was wrong. You never deserved and never will deserve the crown on your head." Their conversation ended there. In their argument, Dinah finds out that Victoria or Alice was not crowned with the crown which was intended for her. The king used a different crown. She questioned Harris about the crown later and their order of tradition, and it entailed as far as crowns go. She finds it curious that the king didn't use the elaborate diamond encrusted crown that her brother Charles made her. She remembered that the night he was murdered, she couldn't find the crown in his room where he kept it. The only reason the king wouldn't have used the crown to crown Alice is because he didn't find it there. He never found it, which means someone else was in the room that night and took the crown. The king didn't even know the crown existed. That night, Dinah sneaked into town with her guard, Kyershin. She was looking for two families in the king's court, the Delmonts and the Sanders. She found out that Lord Delmont and his entire family died from food poisoning, and Lord Sanders' family was killed by Yorkshire warriors in the war. Lord Sanders had an apprentice named Sweetie Thorndyke. They found his mother, Ruby Thorndyke, who told her son had disappeared over a year ago after what she thought he fell into some shady dealings with Lord Sanders. She only said her son felt like he was in trouble after he was given a package that had to be hidden and kept secret, but she never knew what it was in the package. Dinah comes to the conclusion that after talking to Ruby, memories flooded her senses and everything fell swiftly into place. Charles giving her the crown. Sweetie, poor innocent Sweetie, who never knew what he held in his hands. Behind the confusion and doubt was only one person who probably already aware of what she was seeking. He was the key to her rule, to her crown, to her fate. He was the one who brought the crown to her in Huyura. He was always one step ahead of everyone. Her father, the man in the purple cloak, Cheshire. Dinah put two and two together and figured out the person involved in the disappearance of Sweetie Thorndyke, Ruby's son. It was no other than her father, Cheshire. He was the only one who could have retained or gotten hold of that crown and give it to Lord Sanders to keep, and also figured it was Cheshire who killed her brother, not the King of Hearts. She ordered Sir Gawain to bring Cheshire to her. She confronted him. "I know that you killed my brother. You killed Lucy and Contrell that night, and then you threw Charles from the window. You murdered him, a young child, the son of the woman you once loved. How could you? He was innocent." Cheshire glared back at her and said, "He was a pawn. He stood in the way of your throne by his very nature. He was a weakness, an embarrassment to you, to your family. He was the proof that your whore of a mother actually slept with the king. I knew that the only way I could convince you that the king never intended to give you the crown was to get rid of Charles. It was the only way you would leave the palace, the only way you would ever seize your destiny. The king would have never crowned you queen. I was only looking out for you. You must believe me." Dinah replied, "I do, but you were sloppy that night. So unlike you, Cheshire, you killed Charles, but you were in a hurry. In your haste, you took the crown that Charles made for me, the only evidence of your crime. You didn't anticipate that I would go to Charles's room before fleeing, that I would notice it was missing." Then Harris spoke up. "After my queens fled the kingdom, you were nervous and about having the crown on your person, especially with the king around. If he had found that out that you and not the queen had killed his son, nothing could have saved you from his anger. So you gave it to two men who owed you a debt, Lord Sander and Delmont, for safekeeping. Lord Sander agreed to keep the crown for you in his home, but for his debt was greater. Together they began to put the pieces together, and in a fatal miscalculation attempted to blackmail you. You poisoned the Delmont, Lord Delmont and his family as a warning to Lord Sanders. An entire family wiped out, all to scare one man. Your plan worked. Terrified, Lord Sander gave the crown to his apprentice, Sweetie Thorndyke, to hide it from you. He thought it was insurance, that you wouldn't kill him if you didn't know where the crown was. Now they knew it couldn't have been the king who killed Charles. Harris went on. When the queen realized that Alice had never worn the crown and that the King of Hearts had never seen it, she realized it couldn't have been the king in the room that night. All this time it was you, the man in the shadows. But still, Dinah didn't regret killing the king because she stated the King of Hearts wasn't innocent. He tried to kill me several times, though it's understandable seeing how he believed that I actually killed Charles. Though our belief in the other one's guilt was false, I have no regrets. He was terrible. He was a terrible king, a murderer 1,000 times over, and a corrupt leader. He threw those who opposed him in the Black Towers. He cheated and exploited the people of Wonderland. He ordered the slaughter of hundreds of Yorkie and those villagers who lived in the Twisted Wood. Next, we run into another innuendo that Colleen Oakes associates space with black people on page 312. Space were, as quote on page 312, it says, spades were beginning to show a bit of pride and decorum. They were still a disgusting and vile group, but the changes were evident. No spade had killed another in weeks. This was an encouraging sign. No spade had killed another in weeks. Wow.
What the hell that mean, GiGi the reader? What the hell that mean? No more spade on spade crime. Spades are beginning to show a bit of pride and decorum because they were a disgusting group that were evident. No more spade had killed other spade in weeks. And another spade had not killed another spade in weeks. So you know where the spade come from. Like they say, black on sex child, no more black on black, no more spade on spade crime. Like no more black on black crime. Like there's no such thing as white on white crime. Okay, so that don't exist. We see you, Colleen Oakes. We see you. I see that. We see that shade in there. And we woke. We see the shade in there. Okay, I'm just saying, GiGi the reader. Okay, we're going to overlook it, though. We're going to continue on. But we see you. We see you. All right.
Yep, okay. Finally, the day came when Dinah had to visit Wardley in his chamber. She didn't want to face him because she was still mourning Victoria. He was still mourning Victoria, Alice. He looked terrible. He lost weight and lived in what once was Alice's chambers. He told her, please go, Dinah. I can't bear to look at you. She begged him, be my king, Wardley Gain. He replied, you killed her. You killed Alice. I cannot forgive you. She replied, I need you to be my king. Say yes for Alice. You know that she will forever haunt my dreams and waking hours. He retorted, how can I be your king when being near you makes me long to wrap my hands around your neck? How can I be your husband? Before she left the room, she told him if he did ever decide to marry her and become her king, he must never tell anyone what really happened to Alice. He agreed, but paused and remembered he had once told one other person. It was a stranger he met after he fell asleep in the woods near the grounds of the palace. He awoke to a stranger standing over him. His name was Lewis. He invited him into his tent because he was still mourning Alice. He confided to the man how Alice died. He remembered the man's tent was filled with blue smoke. The alchemist or witch doctor Ihora's tent, as Dinah remembers. He fell asleep in the man's tent. When he awoke, the man was gone.
That wasn't hardly no man named Lewis. That was that creepy old witch doctor. named Ahor the witch doctor that was in disguise. Now his secret is out to that one person. He gonna hold that. He seemed like the creepy old bastard type that would try and blackmail her later on. I don't know if it's gonna happen in this story, but he gonna use that against them. He know they secret. That was that witch doctor. What happened was he got Wortley up in his tent and got him high, and Wortley didn't know who he was, and now he let the secret out, and that's all he needs out let out a secret to one person, and now that's all I can say. Okay, carry on.
Okay, moving on. One night, while Dinah stood in the balcony from her chambers looking out over the fields of Wonderland and noticed a black shadow darting across the field, she ran from her room down to the palace gates as her guard, Kai Urshan, chased behind her. She ran towards the dark figure. She was elated when she saw that it was Mort, her horse. He wasn't dead, only injured and wounded from the war. He was alive. She climbed onto his back and slowly rode him back to the palace. Dinah's heart sang. So in the epilogue, Mort is fully recovered and Wortley is king. He agreed to marry her and they had kids. The epilogue affords 10 years ahead. He agreed to marry her. They have 3 kids. The youngest is a girl named Dabby, and the oldest are 2 9-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, named Amabel and Charles. And this is where the story ends.
The end. Finally. Okay, now we can talk now. I just want to point something out, GiGi, to me. I just got to point this out. Okay, she named one of her daughters, the youngest, Dabby, after her mother, Dabblebean. And then the twin girl's name is Amabel. Who else in the story is named Amabel? That would be Sir Gorin's child that he had. He had a little girl that in the story earlier, this little girl died. She was killed in the war, in a raid, one of the king's raids. Yeah, Sir Gorin. Yeah, he had a daughter named Amabel. Why would she name one of her kids after his daughter, his deceased daughter? I don't know. You know, her mother, she might have took after her mother. GiGi, the reader, she might tell you, her mother was a whore and messed around on the king. How we know Dinah didn't mess around with Sir Gorin on the side when she had them twins, and the twins might not be Wortley's. I mean, her mother was messing around with the king when she had her with Cheshire. I mean, Amabel, she gonna name her child to another man's deceased daughter? I mean, and he ain't no bad-looking man. Because she didn't have to make Wortley her king. He did mess around with her. I mean, maybe it was tit for tat. I don't know. Maybe that's her way of getting back at him, at Wortley, that one with Sir Gorin. And that's why she named her child. I mean, I don't know, it could just be in honor. I don't know, that don't sound right to me, if you did a reader. That sounds shady to me, okay. But okay, it was a good story. It was a good story.
Yep.
Okay, carry on.
Okay, thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe.